Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Pack that.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. We're flying solo as of the moment. I'm sure Tim will join us here in a second. I know Emilio's out there on the grind, and Jacob is somewhere. We don't know where Jacob is. Maybe we'll hear from him in a little bit as well. Hopefully everybody's having a great day here on this glorious January 23rd. We're almost a Friday, gang. We just about made it. I know the chat is filling up here. Appreciate everybody swinging through. Josh Martin in the chat. Good morning. Good morning to you, buddy. We got Chris in. Good morning, y'all. Dane Stromstad in the house. Harry Cheese. Appreciate you swinging through, pal. Hopefully everybody's staying warm out there on this chilly January morning. I want to give a shout out real quick. I need to get better at this. A shout out to all of our new Patreon members real quick here in the month of January. Let's just roll there. Mike Hebring, a new Patreon member. Rel as well. We got Braden Fielding, a new Patreon member, and we got Joseph Ryle. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that last name right there, Joseph. I know he's in the chat all the time. Appreciate your support. And Allison Tuckwall, thank you all for joining the Patreon group. And I know they're utilizing some of the chats here so we can communicate on the show as we are deep into draft season already, in my opinion. I know free agency is going to hit first. We're going to have contract restructure period as well coming up here roughly February the 20th. We'll kind of start to look for some of those restructures to hit. We're going to have other key dates. Obviously, February 18th, the teams may designate their franchise and transition players. So got a lot of stuff that's going to be happening here this next month, along with, we got college all-star games. We're going to have the scouting combine. Things are going to heat up really, really quick. And next thing you know, we're going to be on a flight to Green Bay for the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody following in here. Appreciate y'all making us a part of your morning. Let's go to the chat right off the bat here. Packers Kingdom says, good morning, Clayton. I want Mike Green. Trade back a bit to get him. He's a stud, and he is so much different. He's a monster, and he got a lot of tools in his bag. You could probably use his abilities like Coop. You guys know Mike Green's someone I'm big on. We'll hit the Patreon group here in a second, and I'll kind of mention that here in a moment as well. Packers Kingdom also says Godwin might be a Raider, so Adams the only option or just draft at this point. All right, so it sounds like might be some rumors involved with Chris Godwin potentially going to the Raiders. Not sure about that. I'll have to dig into that. Packers Kingdom also says we can sign Baron Browning. He can be used like Cooper or edge, really good pass rusher. Baron Browning like Mike Green and Gary and JJ and LVN. That's a lot of competition. You definitely want to make sure you're loaded at that edge position. There's no doubt about that, man. And that along with 3-Tech, of course. So we got Andy Watkins in the house. Good to see you in here, buddy. CJ in. Just signed in. We got Richard King. We got Ron Samble. Hopefully you guys are having a great morning here. So let's start with the Patreon group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the consensus big board on the screen for a second, and we're going to hit on some of these Patreon. Go ahead and close that out. Some of these Patreon prospects. What I did was I jumped in there and said, hey, gang, feel free to post your favorite draft prospects in here so we can kind of highlight them, right? And first up is Chris in the Patreon group says Walter Nolan. He's an aggressive 3-Tech D line from Ole Miss, NFL ready, but also young, only 21 years old, and no major injury history. So that final part right there is absolutely huge. Let's see where he's sitting on the consensus big board right now. We're looking for Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, one of my favorite prospects, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be he's got an opportunity to be a hell of a pro. There's no doubt about that. So we may have already passed him up. Let's just go to D-line here. Might be a little easier because he should be somewhat toward the top here. 28th on the big board. He peaked at 24. So he should be right there in that range for the Packers, who are set to pick as we got Tim joining us here. 23rd, I believe, is the official draft pick, right? I've seen people reporting 25th, Tim. It is 23rd, right?
It is 23rd. Let's put him on the board. Here we go.
All right, cool. So Walter Nolan is someone that, like I said, Chris in the Patreon group is excited about. And they've got him mocked 25 to the Houston Texans. So obviously he will be available when the Packers pick 23rd if it were to fall in this order. Let me give you guys a newsflash. It will not fall in this order. It never does. There's always surprises involved. Some other defensive linemen that are kind of hovering around Walter Nolan is like Shamar Stewart, defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. You got Derek Harmon out of Oregon. And You got Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, which absolutely dominated the other night. That was such a fun national championship game to watch. You got to tip your cap to Ohio State. Class act as well. The way they, some people, they don't win well. Ohio State, the respect they showed Notre Dame after that game and everything, and just those two young quarterbacks, two great human beings in Riley Leonard with Notre Dame and obviously Will Howard with Ohio State. It's just so cool to see someone that young. Tim, when I was that age, I was a knucklehead, man. These guys right here, there's probably a couple bad apples in this entire draft, right? When I was their age, if you were to say, hey, man, here's, I don't know, $5 million, do what you want with it.
Oh, Lord, we'd be in trouble.
I would have been in a lot of trouble, no doubt about it. So. But anyway, how you doing this morning, man?
Hey, catching up on my jitter juice and getting ready. I'm doing good, man.
Exactly.
Happy to be here. Late as usual, but better late than never.
Hey, man, ain't nothing wrong with that, dude. Trust me. There's many mornings I'm rolling in here 1 or 2 after going, I got to go live. So I get it. CJN says, where is that guy Mel Kiper picked for the Packers? Mike Green. There you go.
Who the hell is a Mel Kiper anyway?
Yeah, we got to get that back, by the way. We got to get that added back in. That's going back on the list since it's officially draft season. So, yeah, Mike Green is an edge defender, and he's probably going to be one of my top edge defenders. Now, here's what's really weird. Like, you got some guys that people will think will be an interior defensive lineman in certain defenses, so you just got to kind of group them as best you can. The PFF will have some listed as a defensive lineman. Consensus Big Board will have them as an edge. You got to kind of take that into consideration, do your own research to see where they actually fit. But Mike Green is currently sitting in the number 32 spot out of Marshall. Okay, they've got him mocked to go 31 to Philly. Now, in the Patreon group, I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit there because someone mentioned him, CJN, in the Patreon group. Shout out to CJN. He says, Copper mock draft 1.0 has the Packers taking Mike Green from Marshall. Not exactly who I'd go with, but figured to mention any name I see linked to the Packers at 23. And do that for me in there, CJN. I don't care whose mock draft it is. Throw them up. More information is better than less. And I had screenshotted a message I had put in our normal chat the other day in Patreon where I said early prospects. This was on Friday that I posted this. I said early prospects really standing out to me are defensive tackle Mason Graham, halfback Ashton Jeanty, quarterback Shedeur Sanders, wide receiver Tataro McMillan, edge defender James Pierce, and tight end Colston Loveland, and also edge defender Mike Green. And posted that. Then, of course, Mel Kiper goes and puts him on the mock draft. Mike Green's one of those dudes. Me and Ryan Schlip, Pack Daddy on Packernet Podcast, were watching some tape the other day. He'd sent me over a couple of highlights. And Mike Green throwing a spin move out there, Tim. I hit Ryan back. I'm like, listen, the spin moves ain't everything, and that flashy stuff can get you in trouble when you're trying to play schematically sound. But there's a lot of NFL edge defenders that doesn't have a spin move like that, man. It was wild. So Mike Green definitely a name to keep our eye on.
Wow. Yeah, I'd be surprised if we go edge that early, but if he's a beast, he's on the board, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Also in that list here, we got Do You Rant, said Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman, Michigan, 6'3", 340, 21 years old, will turn 22 in October. There's a good chance he will run under a 5-second 40-yard time, mid to late first round prospects. So let's see where our boy is on the list here. Again, Kenneth Grant. I want to say he was towards the top, right? Like he might be. Yeah, here we go. So Mason Graham has really distanced himself. Okay, he peaked at 2. He's sitting at 5. His teammate Kenneth Grant is the one that our boy Do You Rant in the Patreon group is actually talking about here, Tim. He's sitting in the 20 spot, peaked at 17. Like I said, defensive lineman out of Michigan. If you notice this little symbol right here, he will be at the East-West Shrine game. So that'll be something to keep an eye on there. They've got him mocked 1 pick above the Packers to the Chargers at 22. So Kenneth Grant looking like might be a stud. I always say use caution. It doesn't mean both of these guys can't be good. But when you get two teammates that play beside each other in a defense, you gotta really step back and go, okay, let's go to the tape. Let's look at the analytics. Let's look at the PFF grades to see, was one of them being double teamed more than the other? And that was, making his job a little easier. It's kind of like the whole Jamar Chase, T. Higgins conversation, right?
Yep.
Some people look at it and go, yeah, T. Higgins would have been a lot better, had a lot better numbers if he didn't have to play with Jamar Chase. And then other people look at it and go, What are you talking about? Jamar Chase was having the coverage rolled his way. T. Higgins should have had more stats, right? So it just kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? But what do you think about Kenneth Grant here, man?
Draft them both. Get both of them.
I like it.
Like we don't need any help in the trenches, right?
Yeah, definitely. CJN said, I will do that, Clayton. I appreciate it, CJ. Anything you guys want to take ownership of in those Patreon groups like that, man, I'm all about it. Give yourself little projects, man. That's how you get better at learning this stuff too, right? Like hey, if you ask yourself, if you sit back and you go, I wonder how that works. I don't really know much about that. Hey, write it down on a piece of paper as silly as it sounds. I'm going to study the hell out of that this offseason. I'm going to become an expert at it, right? That's how you get better at stuff. So, yeah, appreciate that, man. If you would, just throw those up in there, and that'll keep them at the forefront of our mind. Up next, you got Anthony. I'm scared to say the last name because I don't want to butcher someone's last name. It's Noffke. Would it just be Nofk?
Yeah, Nofke. No.
Yeah. Sorry if we butchered it, Anthony. You're the man, though. Anthony says, Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. He has elite physical tools and has long arms to make plays. He has battled some injuries, but I don't think that would slow him down much. If the Packers move on from Ja, Morrison could develop as a cornerback one. He is a junior, so hopefully he enters the draft. As a Notre Dame fan, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't, but I understand what you're saying there, Anthony, for sure. Let's go find Benjamin Morrison real quick and see where he's at on the consensus big board. Notice he peaked at 15, but he's currently sitting at number 22. They've got him currently mocked to go to Tampa Bay, number 19. Now, with Morrison, hip injury, right? I'm not as big on Morrison as most people are. And I think Anthony probably hit the nail on the head there. You got all these crazy elite physical tools. If that's the case with Benjamin Morrison in the scout's eyes, then awesome, right? I'm more of a – when I create my board, it's going to be on the safe side. You guys remember last year with the whole Cam Kinchens stuff, right? I'm looking at Cam Kinchens and I'm going, I don't see it. I just don't see him being like this. He's the top safety in the draft. And then, there was a lot of conversation about, well, is it actually a fit for the type of safety they need? And most people, when they say that, they don't understand that in the NFL, safeties are very rotational now, right? Like they're very interchangeable, as you've seen this year. There was many times that, people would look at Xavier McKinney and they would say, he's a free safety. You want him playing center field. Well, there was many times this year that Xavier McKinney was actually playing down in the box, right? It was almost like he was on the line of scrimmage. Some would consider him on the defensive line at some point, right? Where
we saw that a lot more than we expected to see, too.
Right. And then what would happen, though, Tim, was he would bail out a lot of times, too, right? Bail out and he would take a too deep responsibility. So they've got to be very interchangeable in today's NFL. Gone are the days of in the early 2000s, late 90s, where a strong safety meant you played in the box and you played over the tight end, right? Now it's, you got to be able to mix and match in the way that they're trying to really disguise defenses in today's game. So, Benjamin Morrison, though, I would love to see the Packers draft the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'd love to see him go on to have a great career. I'm not there yet on Benjamin Morrison, but many, many people are. There's no doubt about that. As you can see here, they got him in the 22 spot. He peaked at 15. So at one point, he was borderline top 10 caliber talent. So appreciate it, Anthony. I hope you're right there, man. I hope he goes on to be a great pro and he does it in Green Bay. That'd be awesome. Chris Nichols in the Patreon group says defensive tackle Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Let's jump back over to defensive line. Derek Harmon currently sitting in the 26th spot. He peaked at 23 here, Tim, out of Oregon. They've got him mocked going number 16 to the Arizona Cardinals. What do you think about old Derek Harmon? You got this cluster of guys: Kenneth Grant, Shamar Stewart, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, and Tyleik Williams. And I know, Tim, you would throw your boy Deion Walker in that cluster as well.
I would.
And what you got to do is this is what Daniel Jeremiah, former NFL scout for the Baltimore Ravens, former quarterback at Appy State. He's kind of the draft expert on NFL Network. He always calls them cluster busters. And he and Bucky Brooks, who was a former NFL player who also has done scouting at the NFL level, they always talk about when you've got a cluster of players that you see in a similar light, you got to come up with what you call a cluster buster. What's going to differentiate between the two? And they said some scouts are different than others, right? So it's Nofke. There you go. Thank you, Anthony. I'll probably have to ask you that again here in a week. I apologize. I'm a knucklehead, but Nofke. I'll try to keep that up. But yeah, so those cluster busters, Tim, it might be age, right? It might be, well, this is the younger guy, let's take him. It might be injury history. Well, this guy has a clean injury history. Let's take him over the others. It could be those positions of importance, right? Like if you got 2 3 tech, or let's say you got a 3 tech sitting there, 2 cornerbacks, 2 wide receivers, and an interior offensive line, the cluster buster might be, hey, we all got a similar grade on these guys, but that 3 tech is way more important than anything else. Let's take him, right? It just depends on what that cluster buster is for you. And for me, personally, it's about consistency. I want to see multiple years of playing consistent football at a high level. And PFF is a great tool for that, where you can go back and go, okay, his college grade in 23 is just as good as 24, as opposed to this guy who was slightly better in 24, but in 23, he wasn't even in the top 100 of his position rank. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough because I think 3 tech is definitely the priority, like you said. But we also need help at corner, and we need receivers. And this draft is not short on receivers, that's for sure. So I don't know if Goody's going to stick and pick in the first, or if he's going to trade back and make everyone angry, or is he going to, take a D tackle in the first round and make everybody mad that doesn't pay attention?
Right.
Who knows?
Exactly. To me, it's in the first round, it kind of feels like tier 1. You got to take the most important positions, the best player at those most important positions, if the board lines up that way. And what I mean by that is, like, think of LVN, right? Edge defender, tier 1 of importance. So you pull the trigger on him. Devontae White, 3 tech, right? Tier 1 of importance. They take him. Quay Walker was the exception where we were like, whoa, but I think they did look at him a little bit like a freak, like, hey, we want to play him at stack backer, but he can also rush the quarterback, so there might be a little extra added value there as opposed to someone who's just going to play stack backer. And what I mean by stack backer is, you say linebacker in a 34 defense, the outside, the edge defender is actually technically a linebacker, although we call them edge because it's essentially a pass rusher. But when you say stack backer, you're talking about playing that traditional inside linebacker, right? And whether it is the nickel 4-2-5 or just a 4-3, in that case, an outside linebacker in a 4-3 is a stack backer as well. So that's, I always want to kind of specify that as we move forward here. So again, those prospects that they like: Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. That was Chris that said that. Do You Rant likes Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman out of Michigan. Anthony Nofke, I think I got that right.
Nailed it.
There we go. Cornerback Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Chris Nichols, like Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. And then CJN had mentioned Mike Green being mock draft to Mel Copper's most recent mock draft there. So what we do now, Tim, is let's pull up the PFF big board and see where those guys land real quick. If we can ready to go, if we can do it in a reasonable fashion here. By the way, he's getting raked over the coals today, and rightfully so. Ben Johnson for acting like a moron. Get ready to go. All right, so
ready to go.
Let's roll back
home early. No playoffs for you.
Let's roll back through it again. Let's start with Walter Nolan. Let's see where Walter Nolan falls on the PFF big board. They've got him in the 36th spot, fairly close to the consensus big board. Look at these PFF grades, Tim. 2024 at 88.9. He was the 8th highest graded defensive lineman in all of college football. 2023, though, 72.5. He was the 199th graded defensive lineman. And here's what I mean by that, okay? So he was right around the top, the 200 mark at his position in 2023, but he jumped all the way to 8th in 2024, okay? This could be him, right? That could be him. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. This could be who he is, that 8th best defensive lineman. Like, he's a stud, right? But you've got to take into consideration that even though only just 365 snaps a year before, it's a 72.5. So let's compare and contrast to other defensive linemen. Fairly similar up here with TJ Sanders, right? I would put Walter Nolan over TJ Sanders, just strictly going off of PFF grades. But if you go on up, right, look at the consistency here. Even though Tyleik Williams graded lower than Walter Nolan this year, right, with a 79.6, he showed 3 years of consistency, right? There's some value to be had there. Some would say there's less of a chance of Tyleik Williams being a bust as opposed to Walter Nolan if you're just strictly looking at PFF as everything. And it's not everything. Just an example of, let's pretend that these are scouting grades that scouts had on them. You could see how someone might say, this is probably a safer pick in Tyleik Williams as opposed to Walter Nolan, who might have some more upside, seeing that he just blew up this year, right?
Yep.
Now, Kenneth Grant, right, obviously ranked higher than him. Look at this, 83 and an 80. Just an absolute stud, right? There's only 2 players in my top tier on our board right now. And shout out to Emilio, who's been working his arse off on that draft board. It's coming together really, really nicely. We may show you a little glimpse of it. It's nowhere near complete, and we're still working out some kinks for qualifiers and stuff, but it's coming together nice. Mason Graham is one of 2 players that's right at the top. He's in a tier of his own, right? He and this other player, I think it was, let me double check here, Ashton Genty. Those 2 players, in my opinion, and it's early, that could change, are the 2 best prospects in the draft this year, in my opinion. Mason Graham was the highest graded defensive lineman in all of college football this year with a 91.1, right? Last year, he had a 90.0. He was the 5th highest graded prospect, 5th highest graded defensive lineman in all of college football. And then even in 2022, he had an 80.3. So you can see the difference there between a prospect like that, where it's just a slam dunk, and Walter Nolan, who graded out great this year, but maybe hasn't been as consistent as you want. Now, don't get me wrong. A 72 to an 88, it isn't like 72 is a bad grade. It's just if you're having to differentiate between certain prospects, that's going to come into play. Does that make sense, Tim?
Absolutely. I think so does build. When you talk about, D linemen, we need somebody tipping the scales at 300 or better, well over 6 feet, over 300. We need a big dog in the trenches. It's another qualifier that I look at. So you see that with Nolan, you see that with Tyleik Williams, you see that with Grant, you see that with Mason Graham. Mm-hmm. Can you scroll down to my boy Deion Walker? I think he's just over 300 also. Yep, 345, 6'6".
He's a dog, bro. He's thick. I noticed about Deion Walker, being a Kentucky fan last year, was he moves like a freaking cat. Like his ability to move, what am I trying to say here? Horizontally, I guess is the right way to say it. I don't want to say sideline to sideline like he's Fred Warner. Please don't take that the wrong way. Right. But he'll get into a B gap, right? And then as the play develops and the quarterback steps up, it's just a quick little spin move, lateral quickness, and then he's got his arms in the throwing lane of the A gap right. You know what I'm saying? Or the A gap left from the defense's perspective. Like he has some really, really good bursts laterally. I'm eager to see what he does at the combine because I think he will, even though his size, he'll probably surprise some people. Now, he took a step back this year, but this is a perfect example, Tim, of like which player is Deion Walker, right?
Exactly. So, that's the negative I see is the kind of the up and down with the grades from 22 to 24, but he's got other factors that bode well for him. Look at the age. Age is awesome. Height and weight, skill set looks good, but you're right. Who are we getting? Which player?
Right. And as Drew says here, Walker has great feet for a 345-pound linebacker. Yeah, I think he's making fun of me there, obviously.
Thick.
He is very thick, man. Listen, I hope that Deion Walker goes on and has a great career, just like I said with Carrington and any other of my Kentucky Wildcats, man. I hope it happens. This year was a little bit like, whoa, all right. And now you look at Harrison, the cornerback out of Kentucky as well, same thing, took a step back. When you have multiple players, just like this year on our defensive line, when you have multiple players who have a step back in production or even, PFF grades, you got to question yourself and go, I don't want to say that was part of the plan, but they obviously changed something up to make that happen. Now, there's some people, Tim, they'll look at that grade and go, man, I don't think he's worthy of a high pick if he had a 71.2 and he dropped this year, right? Well, think back to this. You remember when we drafted Jaden Reed?
Yep.
And almost everybody was going, what the hell? They traded back twice. Jaden Reed, this is kind of what he looked like, if I remember correctly. The year of the draft that he came out didn't look that great, wasn't like popped off the charts, but the year before, stud.
Yep.
So that's definitely something there's precedent for Goody in terms of he may look at some of these players like this. Now, if you're telling me you could get Deion Walker with, a pick in the 60s, sign me up. You know what I mean? and that could be possible. So, and he could come out in the combine too, Tim, tear it up, have an RAS in the 9s, and next thing
he's
10
gone in the top 25 or something. Yeah.
Right. You just never know, man. You never know. So, again, just kind of backtracking through those. We hit Kenneth Grant. We talked about him there for a second, as that was Do You Rant's favorite prospect. According to PFF, man, they agree. He's slightly above Tyleik Williams, TJ Sanders, Walter Nolan, all of those guys. Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins is another one, like 87.2, right? This past year, the year before, 79.9. That's a little more stable than like a Walter Nolan that I'm in love with, right? Yep. So just got to keep that in mind. So Kenneth Grant obviously was Do You Rant's guy. Anthony Nofke also said, Benjamin Morrison. Let's see where they've got Benjamin Morrison here on the PFF board. They've got him as the third best corner. He's sitting in the 16 spot. And you see his PFF grades, 77, 79, and then this last year he dropped to a 71, and his snaps obviously dropped to 314 from 621 because of that hip injury. So he is 6 foot 190. It's not like he's got a crazy size, but they are expecting him to have like elite traits, right? Mm-hmm. If that's the case and he's fully healthy from that hip injury when he goes to the combine, and we'll have all that information as we get a little closer to the combine date, who's performing, who isn't. Who's waiting on pro days, that type of thing. But with Benjamin Morrison, this is what makes me a little bit hesitant is right here, right? That 71.4. That doesn't quite feel like an elite corner. Like with Will Johnson in 2022, he was an 88.2, right? If you remove the names and of course the ND for me, so I have no bias.
Right.
And probably in just going strictly off these grades, you probably go with Will Johnson over Benjamin Morrison, right? So Will Johnson looks like he's going to be a dog. And then, of course, Travis Hunter, here's another problem here, man. Travis Hunter, 88.2, won the Heisman this year. He was the best player in football. I think we would all agree. To me, he seemed like the best player in football this year. Last year, he was the 224th graded corner. So he didn't play great last year. He played good, but it wasn't like the same level. But then you go a year before, 82. Kind of feels like one of these don't belong, right?
Yep.
And it's at 74. So it's tricky for sure. But Benjamin Morrison, again, was Anthony Nofke's. Derek Harmon with Chris Nichols. Let's see where they've got him at here on the consensus big board. Another defensive lineman. He likes Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Now, PFF is much lower on Derek Harmon for some reason. He's 86 on their board, Tim. He's below your boy, Deion Walker. On their board. And PFF grades 78. Actually, let's start in 2022. 59, 78, 83. So what you're seeing is he's gotten better every single year. I think some scouts would look at that if that was the way their grades, their tape breakdown suggested, then they'd probably look at Derek Harmon like, this dude, we don't know how good he can be. He's getting better every year.
Yep. I think he'd be one to add to the short list for sure.
Yeah.
Walker, Harmon, and I'll take either one from Michigan, but they're probably not going to be on the board.
Right. And again, that was Chris Nichols' favorite prospect or one of his favorite prospects that he mentioned. And then, of course, CJN mentioned Mike Green. Let's see how PFF feels about Mike Green here real quick. Mike Green, they've got him, Tim, as the third best edge rusher behind Abdul Carter, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. They got him third, and he's 11th overall now. 6'4", 248. Look at these PFF grades, bro. Marshall, of course, you got to mention that. In 2023, a 90.4 on 341 snaps, 12th highest graded edge defender in all of college football. This year, 92.4, the second highest graded edge defender in all of college football with 719 snaps. Mike Green, man, I'm telling you, if you guys get a chance, go to YouTube and just type in highlight reel. And it's not gonna be able to show you the end zone cam, and you can really slow it down and break it down and everything. But you'll get enough of a sample size. You'll go, yeah, this dude has got some natural talent. Some people just have a knack for creating separation, and this dude does it, man. To me, he seems like he's got 2 or 3 pass rush moves already as a young college player. It's pretty wild, man.
And he's got that NFL body type too, 6'4", almost 250. That's right in the wheelhouse. That's where you want him.
Yeah. And again, that was one that I think it was CJN that mentioned, in the Patreon group. So again, shout out to our Patreon group. Appreciate y'all. If you want to join that, just go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access, and that'll send you over there. Or you can scan the QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to the same site. If you're one of the 3 tiers, you'll get entered into giveaways as well, which we're going to be doing a giveaway this coming week right here. Within the next few days, we're going to be giving away a White Beckett style autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. Really, really cool. It comes with the certificate of authenticity, the little sticker, all that good stuff. So you'll be good to go there. And also we throw our YouTube members in there as well. So if you're a member on YouTube, if you've joined our YouTube membership, you'll be entered into that as well. I just always recommend join the Patreon group because you get a lot more, you get an extra added community there. It's really cool. So a lot of different chats. We're also doing this with free agents. We got a chat in there where people can list their favorite free agents, and we're going to probably highlight those tomorrow. So get those in if you get, and you may not have any. That's totally cool. I think we got 1 or 2 submitted already. But if you don't have a favorite free agent, I get it because this free agent class doesn't really look like holy cow, Tim. These are studs, right? So add them in if you want to there. So anything else you want to hit on any of these prospects they mentioned, then we can shift gears and jump into anything you want as well.
No, I think we covered it. I think some good suggestions too from the Patreon group. That's awesome. I can't wait to see the free agent list.
Yeah, definitely. So since we've got a few minutes here, we're at the 31-minute mark. Let me hit on something real quick I wanted to. I'm going to keep these tabs open in case we need them. We got some information, as we got general manager jobs being filled, right? Let's jump into it real quick and just give you guys an update of what's going on around the league here. I'll try to zoom in a touch and make this a little more readable, if that's a word. I don't think it is, but we'll roll with it here.
Get ready to go.
The ads are going to get us on this website over at profootballrumors.com. There's nothing we can do about it. Go buy you a Ram, okay? 42,270 MSRP. So, anyway.
I'm a Chevy guy, man. Chevy all the way.
There you go. So, let's look at these. It says NFL GM search tracker, okay? So, let's kind of see what's going on here with the Raiders. It shows you all of the different guys that interviewed, right? And then who was hired. So they went with John Spytek, assistant general manager out of Tampa Bay there with the Buccaneers. That is your new Las Vegas Raiders general manager. You see the Jacksonville Jaguars listed up here because they just decided to fire Trent Baalke, right? And as the general managers are already getting filled in, they waited till the last second. Of course, that's what the Jaguars would do, right? But anyway, John Spytek is your new general manager with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, up next is the New York Jets. You can see they've interviewed a ton of people here, this entire list right here.
Wow.
They haven't made a hire yet, but I'll tell you one of the first ones that was mentioned was this guy right here, and that's why I wanted to mention it. John Eric Sullivan is still in the running for the New York Jets general manager job. You guys know he's director of player personnel for Green Bay. He's pretty much one of Goody's right-hand men. If you heard Goody talking about him, some general managers might not speak on it as much because they want to keep their guys in-house. I loved how Goody handled it. He was like, listen, this dude is ready for the job. And he said the thing that he really respects about John Eric Sullivan is he tells him what he needs to hear, not what he wants to hear. Sometimes you get a job like that, Tim, and you don't want to – it's like, okay, when somebody says, what do you think? Like I ask you guys all the time, right? What do you guys think about this? What should we do with the show there? Some people would take that and go, what does he want to hear here? What does he want to hear here? Right. As opposed to what's your real opinion? Right.
What do you actually think? Yeah.
And Goody said, John Eric Sullivan is just that dude. That's like, he'll tell me exactly what he's thinking. And you need that, man. You need different opinions, different sounding boards. So I hope he doesn't get this job. I know Goody's putting up a good front saying, man, I hope he gets it because we love John Eric Sullivan. I hope he's back in Green Bay, man, to keep this front office strengthened. But honestly, he's one of these guys that I do look at on this list and go, he's probably one of the top 3 as you look at some of these guys. Yeah. Thomas Dimitroff is really interesting. That's a Belichick. You ever heard his story, Tim?
No.
So his dad worked around football for a long time. And he asked him after college, he said, you want to come up here and work for us in Cleveland? You can do a little bit of scouting or whatever. He said he was on the landscaping crew, the grounds crew for the Cleveland Browns. This is when Belichick was the general manager in Cleveland. And he said he was going up after work up to the front office and helping them do scouting and drawing up player reports and stuff. And he was telling the guys on the groundskeeper crew that's what he was doing, and they didn't believe him. And then lo and behold, he ends up working his way up. He got the general manager job with Atlanta, if I remember correctly. And that was the year that they went and they got beat by the Patriots. He was kind of the architect of building up that whole Matt Ryan, Mike Shanahan as the OC, Dan Quinn as the head coach, that whole run, he was behind the scenes doing that. So pretty cool to see his name mentioned there. And just to kind of give you a little background on who he was. Yeah.
That's awesome. Jim Nagy, too, Senior Bowl Director. Interesting interview there. One of their first interviews.
Yep.
I'm wondering if he's interviewing anywhere else with openings.
Yeah, so the Jets are one that's still open. I believe this is the only one other than the Jaguars that just opened up. Yeah. But there's one more here. Tennessee Titans made their hire. They took Mike Borgonzi, assistant general manager for the Chiefs. That's who they ended up hiring. You'll notice down here at the bottom, once again, John Eric Sullivan was interviewing for that job as well. So we're almost out of the woods. We thought we were almost out of the woods, Tim. If John Eric Sullivan doesn't get hired by the Jets, and he's going to return to the Packers, but now, of course, they fired Trent Baalke at Jacksonville, so now we got to worry about him interviewing there. So look for John Eric Sullivan to be interviewed for the Jaguars job. So
hopefully he stays here and doesn't get the job.
Yes, agreed. But if he does get it,
we're happy.
There is kind of a little, what's it called, consolation prize. Goody's GM tree gets a little bit bigger, right? And that's kind of cool. And of course, that's a part of Ted Thompson's tree, which is a part of Ron Wolf's tree. Really cool how far that goes back, no doubt. So anything else you want me to hit on, scroll up or down on these general manager jobs?
No, I think we covered it. We just put good vibes out there. So Mr. Sullivan stays in Green Bay.
Exactly. So let's move over to the head coach tracker real quick. Same website, Pro Football Rumors. All right. So give them a shout out here. And again, free advertising as Crime Cam 24/7. There's a new season starting there. Sponsor the show. And then now we got a Honda Passport. Go get you a passport, boys. All right. There you go. So here are the head coaching search trackers, okay? And some of these have already been filled, as you can see here with the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson.
Get ready to go.
He is the new head coach hired in Chicago. Next team, the Dallas Cowboys, are still looking for their head coach. Some of the names mentioned, Belichick, obviously he's in North Carolina now. Leslie Frazier, Aaron Glenn, which we'll get to here in a minute. He's pretty much made his decision. Cliff Kingsbury is interviewed, it looks like, or at least mentioned as a candidate, I should say. Hadn't interviewed, I don't think. Anthony Lynn, Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh, Deion Sanders, Brian Schottenheimer, and Jason Witten.
I love the write-ups. Bill Belichick. Mutual interest would have existed if you didn't take the job at North Carolina.
Right.
Deion Sanders, discussions commenced, no deal expected. Yeah.
It sounds like to me, when it comes to the head coaches, the coaching search there in Dallas, these are the three that I think have the best shot. Now, Deion, it seems to be dwindling, right? I think Deion honestly used this as leverage to get more NIL money pumped into Colorado. Hey, listen,
possibly
smart move, right?
It would explain why there hasn't been an interview.
Right. So, I don't think he's interviewed. I want to say he met with him, but maybe he just called. I don't know. And understand this might be not completely up to date. It says conducted a second interview as of 1/22 for Brian Schottenheimer. So it should have been updated as late as yesterday. So
Kellen Moore is interesting to me, right?
Because he kind of wanted Kellen Moore, didn't he? Jerry Jones. He kind of wanted Kellen Moore, and of course, Mike McCarthy moved on from Kellen Moore. He's like, this guy might take my job. Let's get him the hell out of the office, right? And he goes up to Philadelphia and has a great year. And
now he's going to come back and take your job anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then Robert Saleh, of course, has been mentioned. I don't think he's going to get that job. It's possible. I think Robert Saleh is going to end up being a defensive coordinator somewhere. I hope he don't end up back in San Francisco. That would suck,
Yeah.
So
Cliff Kingsbury, another interesting name too, could get another shot at the head coaching position somewhere.
Yeah,
depending on how things pan out for him.
Right. And what you're mentioning there, Tim, is he won't interview until after the season, right? So once Washington is if Washington somehow goes on and wins the whole damn thing or makes it to the Super Bowl, Tim, Cliff Kingsbury probably going to be one of the top choices, right? So I could see that happening. So again, Dallas Cowboys still looking for their head coach. The Jacksonville Jaguars, a lot of these names, similar names, right, that are on the list here. Kellen Moore's there, Robert Saleh's there, Steve Spagnuolo is mentioned. He interviewed on January 10th. That's interesting, right? So it must have been that little bye week they have at the first round bye, I guess. Kind of think, that probably would have lined up, right? Mike Vrabel, we'll mention here in a second. He's already taken the job with the Patriots. Ben Johnson, obviously, with the Bears. So Aaron Glenn probably going to the Jets, or is going to the Jets. Brian Flores is another one that was mentioned. He interviewed on January 17th. Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator. If you guys don't know, he went to Kentucky for a year or two and helped that offense, turn them around, and then went right back to the NFL. But he's the offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers this past year. So some people, they got a favorite question mark next to him. So it almost feels like in Jacksonville, Liam Cohen might be the favorite down there. We'll see. So, again, Jacksonville looking for a head coach as well. The Raiders still looking for a head coach. Riverboat Ron Rivera mentioned there, Robert Saleh, Deion Sanders, Steve Spagnuolo. Deion Sanders is interesting to me there with the Raiders because it says reportedly interested, but interest is not mutual. But there was someone that mentioned, I'm thinking it was Pac-Man Jones or maybe it was Shannon Sharp, was like, yeah, Deion's not going to the league unless he can coach his boys. So there's a chance, there's a slight chance, I'll say, that I don't know where the Raiders pick. Do we know where the Raiders pick? Let me look at that real quick. Help me out in the chat real quick, guys. I know you guys are awesome with this stuff. Where are the Raiders picking in this year's draft? Is there a chance they could move up with the number 1 pick and take Shedeur Sanders? Because if they can get the number 1 pick, then they could go back to Deion and go, hey, we'll draft your boy if you come here and coach. Now, it would take a lot of faith, obviously, in a coach to do that. So they're picking 6th, according to Drew. It's going to be it's possible, right, to climb up to number 1, but that's difficult. It's not like you're just 2 or 3 spots away, right?
Yep.
But you are in the top 10. So I don't know, man. We'll see. I know how you feel about that, Tim. You made your opinion very vocal about a guy, he's going to come in and pull LeBron James. All right, if I can coach my boy, if I can play with my boy,
Yeah, like that's not to me. If I own an organization, that would not be the foot I'd want to start on with my new coach hire.
Yeah,
but
I want it to happen because of the story. I think it will be, man. Could you imagine the circus around that? I would.
Yeah, and Vegas would be the perfect place for it.
Sure,
to be honest.
Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders in Vegas. Oh my God, you talking about a headline? All the ice they're wearing around their neck, and
perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
It would be a perfect fit. New England Patriots, they got their man Mike Vrabel. I'm excited about this. You guys know I follow the Patriots on the side, outside of the Packers. I think they've got a great media team there with Patriots Unfiltered and some of the podcasts that they've got. It's just fun to watch that whole ascension. Listen to that and experience the whole last 8 years or whatever. I got to be careful with my hand here, Tim. People might do a screen grab there.
Yeah. Oh man.
Anyway,
fake news. It's fake news.
So Mike Vrabel. Obviously, them bringing him back in and him kind of coming from that Belichick tree, right? I think that's going to be exciting. I really do, man. He's already brought back Josh McDaniels as his OC.
Yeah, getting the old squad together, everybody but Bill.
Yeah,
everybody except Bill and his son.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm eager to see. I'm sure they just ran Gerard Mayo out of the building, but if I was Vrabel, I would go to Mayo and be like, hey, do you want a spot on this staff? Because Mayo's a great asset. It's very rare that happens, right? A head coach gets fired and then he comes back as an assistant. That just doesn't happen. So probably not going to happen. So New England's got their guy with Mike Vrabel. The New Orleans Saints, man, a lot of different guys mentioned here. Joe Brady, Aaron Glenn, Mike Kafka, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore, Matt Nagy. Do you say Nagy or Nagy? What do you say, Tim?
Nagy.
That kind of sounded like it was in between. Nagy.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
There you go. Darren Rizzi, interim head coach from the Saints. He interviewed Mike Vrabel, obviously off the market now, and Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. He took over for
Big Mike, man. I think they're going to hire Big Mike
in New Orleans. It makes sense, doesn't it? It really does. I'm telling you, Mike McCarthy needs to be a head coach, dude. What he did in Dallas was good, like 13-win seasons. And then, I know the Packers kind of ended that whole – the Packers –
oh, yeah, we ruined
the whole damn thing for me. I bet Mike's like, these damn Packers. I can't escape it. So, anyway, New Orleans open. The New York Jets, they did hire their guy, right? Yeah, here we go. Aaron Glenn. So, Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Lions, is now the new head coach for the New York Jets.
I believe he's the 5th or 6th head coach now that is the head coach of a team that he played for.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think there's 5 or 6 in the league now. So Aaron Glenn, You've got Vrabel in New England. You've got Dan Campbell in Detroit. I'm trying to think. There's 2 or 3 other guys that are now head coach of the team they used to play for. So kind of an interesting side story.
Yeah. Rambo mentions a good point here. He says, is Patricia coming to New England? That's a great – hey, that could be –
I joked about that the other night. I said, all you got to do now is call Matt Patricia, get him off that TV desk.
That would make sense.
You know?
Yeah, Patricia was a great coach, man. He went to Detroit and obviously failed miserably, but as a coordinator, he did amazing things. And then they tried to make him an offensive coach that last year on the staff because the Crafts, this is a little behind baseball, the Crafts were absolutely in love with Gerard Mayo. I guarantee you if Bill didn't get so much pushback from the organization, he would have made Matt Patricia the DC, but he was just trying to find Patricia a spot. So he put him, and I can't remember the knucklehead that went to the Giants. They tried to make them offensive coordinators, if you want. It failed miserably. I mean, miserably. Anyway.
Manager.
Yeah. Prince in the chat says that he read that Rizzy may be joining Johnson in Chicago. So
Get ready to go.
Keep your eye on that. So, again, Aaron Glenn is your new head coach for the Jets. Tweets were flying up this morning and late last night that Aaron Glenn, if the rumors are true, he's already made it clear that he wants Aaron Rodgers to be his quarterback in New York. So that's probably all Aaron needs to hear if he's planning on playing is someone to want him to be the quarterback, right? We know there's a little bit of that with Aaron. I love 12, but there's definitely a little bit of that. He wants to be wanted. I think we all do, but some people are in the public limelight, right?
Yep.
So there you go. Anthony says Patricia is with Billy in North Carolina. If that's true for the time being, Anthony, keep in mind, though, I know he's got Lombardi down there. Michael Lombardi's his general manager down there now, Tim. So Patricia, it'll be hard to pry Patricia away from Bill. They are so close. But for the right amount of money, money talks. And what do you say, Tim?
BS runs the marathon.
That's exactly right. I cut you off guard there. All right, anyway, let's move on. Actually,
Almost
that's it.
got me to say a bad word there, Clayton.
Exactly. So the reason I wanted to point that out, guys, the Jets, they've made their hire. The Saints are looking for a coach. The Patriots made their hire. The Raiders are looking for a coach. The Jaguars are looking for a coach. The Cowboys are looking for a coach. And that's it. So we got 4 teams, right, that are looking for coaches. I feel like Halfley's saved it. I do.
I think so, too.
So I think we're good there.
After next season, though, might be a different story.
If he comes out in another top 5, top 10 defense, you're right. There'll be conversations about it, no doubt about that. So, there you go. Let me check real quick. There you go. Drew D. North Carolina might become a powerhouse of college football. Drew, man, I'm telling you right now, college is different than it has been in the past, right? I think we would all agree it's kind of the Wild West now. But it's closer to professional football than it's ever been, right? Well, you just got the greatest professional coach in NFL history signed on in an era where college football is more like professional football than it's ever been. That checks the box on what Drew's saying, right? The other thing is, Tom Brady said it best. A college program just got the greatest professional coach in the history of the game. You think he's not going to be able to give them an edge schematically? And I'm telling you, man, he look out. It's going to be fun, Drew. I'm close enough to Chapel Hill. I'm going to be making a trip over and watch Belichick coach the college sidelines. I got to see it. So my plan was to go to New England last year and watch him coach because I figured he might not be in the league, or the year before last, I should say. I was right. I should have done it because that would have been a cool experience. But may have to go to North Carolina and watch the Tar Heels play a game or two. So it's going to be fun. All right, Tim, you got anything else you want to hit on, man? We hit on the prospects that the Patreon group wanted to hit on, right? Anything else you want to hit on here?
I might as well mention Jaden Higgins again. Jaden Higgins, not T. Higgins. Jaden Higgins, not T. Higgins.
What do you want to see? We'll go PFF draft board, or we'll go consensus big board. Which one would you rather see, Tim?
Let's look at PFF. I want to see what PFF thinks of this guy. They usually have different.
You're talking about wide receiver, right?
Yes.
Receiver, Jaden Higgins.
Yes. Iowa State.
So here's the rankings currently, right? You got Tataro McMillan, or Tataro, however you say it, McMillan. He's hands down the best wide receiver in this draft, it feels like, Tim. He's 6'5", 212. You see the PFF grades, 87, 88. He's been a stud, right? He kind of checks the boxes for me, at least on the surface. As long as there's no injury history there, we'd have to dig in. Luther Burden III out of Missouri, 5'11", 208. He's ranked number 10 overall. Then you got Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. 83, 72, 79, a little bit inconsistent there with the PFF grades, but it's not everything. Decent size, 6'1", 205. Matthew Golden out of Texas. I'm not nowhere near as high on him as most people are. PFF's got him 65, 68, and a 74. He's 6 foot 195. 34 spot, Elik I always struggle with this.
Who?
Ayamanor. Anyway, 6'2" out of Stanford, 210 pounds, 75, 74. Savion Williams out of TCU, 72, 78, last two PFF grades. Xavier Restrepo, 74, 87, and 82. 5'10", 198, a little bit undersized, but out of Miami, man, his PFF really likes that dude. And here's Tim Guy, Jaden Higgins. Tim, tell them how tall this cat is.
6'4". I think that's a real measurement too. That's not him standing on his toes with cleats on. That's definitely his measurement. 215, solid. Didn't do a full deep dive yet, but what I saw on tape got me excited, man, for sure. I think this is your guy, and I think it's a realistic possibility that he's on the board when we're picking.
Man, that's fascinating. With the 50, he's ranked 56 on PFF, right? PFF grades 78, 85, 90. So not only are you getting that elite grade really 2 years in a row, but you've gotten improvement every single year. The only knock, if I'm like trying to pick it apart, I'm going, okay, who did Iowa State play? Right? That's an argument to be made. Listen, Iowa has a great defense, right? Had a 69.4 against them. Let's see who else they played this year. That might have been a good program. Who is this right here? Is that Utah? Am I thinking right? Utah Utes? I could be wrong. So. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, 89.8 against that team. I'm not really good with the college logos, to be honest with you. Texas Tech at 82.5. So you can see how the argument could be made if you were to try to find a negative with this prospect. It would be, well, he didn't play like 3 or 4 top-tier teams, right? Not everybody did, though, right? So as Drew D says, 4th best wide receiver out of 1,041 wide receivers. It's wild. Tim, you might get your wish here, man, if it falls just right.
Hey, I'm going to hit it. Let's go.
Here's the guy.
Receiving grade 90.5. Yards per route run, 2.66, above the 3-quarter mark. Contested catch rate, right at the 3-quarter mark at 58.3%. Drop rate is almost completely maxed out at 2.2%. And then this grade versus man coverage, 88.5. It's maxed out. Yeah. Dude's a dog, man, no doubt about it. As far as his snaps, here's what's really interesting, too. You'd think he's a big body receiver. He probably just plays out wide. 337 snaps out wide, but also had 138 slot snaps. So he could play a little bully slot. We used to call that slot bully back in the day. Put you a big 6'2", 6'4", 6'5" guy in the slot and just watch him block down on that nickel corner that's 5'10".
This is what I think of when we're talking about an answer for Scoot, right? We got no Christian Watson. We need a dog. We need a guy with good hands, a guy who's not afraid to block, versatile receiver. I feel like Jaden Higgins is our dude. If we end up drafting him, I might be more happy than I was last year when we got Oladapo, because that was our sweetheart pick last year, and we got it. I think Jaden Higgins is my guy this year for sure. I'm not saying pick at 23 and take him in the first round, but man, I feel like he could be on the board there in I don't know, 60 to 80 range, maybe. Who knows?
It's funny you mentioned.
I'm gonna stop talking about him though. Hopefully, we don't want to build him up too much and get him stolen.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm sitting here going, all right, would you take him with 23? Probably not. But we're talking trade down. What if you traded down, took another player, and then had enough draft capital to come back up and get him in the second, right? Let's see where he's at on the consensus big board. They've got him, Tim, they got him in the 84 spot.
Let's see.
Bro, if you could get him with a second or a third round pick.
Like pick 87 in the third round.
And here's what's exciting. We got the Senior Bowl coming up, right?
Yep.
He's going to be at the Senior Bowl. So you'll be able to notice him. You'll go, damn, who's that monster over there split wide? Yeah, that's Jaden Higgins. So Milltown Corey Tim, you have to keep an eye on him at the Senior Bowl. There you go.
Oh yeah.
So let's keep an eye on Jaden Higgins, Tim's draft crush here, 84th currently on the big board. He peaked at 69, so he'll probably settle somewhere in the middle, I would imagine. And I'm trying to think here with our picks. I know you got them scrolling here. Let's let it reset real quick. We're picking 23rd. All right. I imagine we're probably picking 46th. Is that right, Tim? No, it wouldn't be 46. Hold on, man. 32. Math's hard. What would it be? 50. Where's our second pick? Let's wait for it to come through here. I'm trying to think. So you got pick 23, and then we'll have pick 54, right? And then you got pick 87. What if you just stick and pick with your 23rd pick and then your second round pick? And then let's say you got 2 or 3 receivers you really like. And as you close into the third round, say you get to like pick 75, you only got 2 left and Jaden Higgins is one. Then you climb up in the third round, snatch him up. Right.
Whatever we got to do, man. Just make him a Packer.
You sound like Ted Thompson. Remember when he was trying to trade up and get Clay Matthews, and somebody came back and said that's a lot to give up for him. And they said, Ted looked that dude right in the eye and said, "I want the player." That's all he said. So they pulled the trigger on it. Number one Packer fan says, as long as we get a Higgins, so Packer fans could shut up for a while. Tim, you may have solved all of our problems here.
Look at that.
I love it.
Here's a guy. He's definitely on the offensive side of the ball. That's my draft crush. I think Deion Walker is probably my defensive draft crush.
Mm-hmm. Let me give you guys a quick glimpse into our draft board real quick, and then we'll get out of here. And again, we've got like 7 different steps to go through from this point. This is just early on, and Emilio's done a great job of keeping this clean here. I want to get it out. So as it sits right now, you've got all kinds of information in here, right, that we can reference. Some of it applies to the grade, some of it does not, right? But PFF 22 grades are in there, the 23 grades are in there, the 24 grades are in there, and we do it by position ranking to throw a little wrench into the mix. I want to be able to quickly reference and go, okay, Mason Graham in 22, he was the 66th best defensive lineman. In 23, he was the 5th best defensive lineman. In 24, he was the top rated defensive lineman, okay? We've also got the PFF big board in there. And then you got the consensus big board added in as well. But as it sits right now, if we were to sort these by overall value, this is what I love about our board. Through the process, we create these little quarter marks where it's like, okay, now let's see who's the best prospect up to this stage. And at any point, you can sort by that stage so you can really see what differentiates between the prospects. So on our board right now, the 2 that are sticking out are Mason Graham, defensive lineman out of Michigan, and Ashton Gianti out of Boise State. Those are the 2 that I would consider in the top tier right now with a 3.8 and a 4.3, the lower number wins on my boards, okay? Next would be we'll break it down into increments of 5 if it warrants it, but right now we'll just keep it increments of 10 points then. So those are your 2 top prospects as it sits right now. Again, it could change. Next, you'll go from 10 to 20. So you got Tataro McMillan, tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan, quarterback Shadur Sanders out of Colorado, right? And then you got tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. And again, those are going to get shuffled around a lot. But as it's sitting right now, the board screams at you on the vertical board. All right, where's some of the value early on? Early on, you got 1 defensive lineman who separated himself, 1 running back who separated himself, 1 wide receiver who separated himself, 2 tight ends, right, and a quarterback in Shadur Sanders. Most people have Cam Ward as like he's the top quarterback prospect over Shadur Sanders. Hell of a year this year. I mean, he blew up. But here's the issue I have with that. Look at his 24 grade. He was the 2nd highest graded quarterback, right? Last year, he was 70th, and in 22, he was 242nd. So he's gotten better. But look at Shadur Sanders, 53, 24, and 9, right? And again, that's just PFF. The consensus big board has Shadur Sanders number 2, and they had Cam Ward as number 1. Now, keep in mind this too, Tim, and we'll wrap this thing up. The reason we approach it this way and we get the information in as soon as possible, Emilio was getting frustrated. You were on the text thread. He was like, Clayton, the boards are changing like as I'm typing this in. I'm like, yeah, they're going to constantly. I'm telling you right now, man, if you think for a second the media doesn't get involved with that swaying boards and this and that, because it happens every year. That's why I try to get that information in as quick as possible. That way we don't allow the hype train. Guys, they're done playing college football other than the All-Star games, right? And the All-Star games will matter. We'll throw in a bonus for that. We'll make sure the guys who really stood at the All-Star games will get a bonus as well. So we'll take care of that ourselves rather than leaving this kind of fog of war approach to where these guys can just fluctuate them up and down, right? So
yeah,
it's something to keep your eye on. But I'm excited about the All-Star games, though, man. We'll watch it close as ever. You know what I was thinking? If we can make it work with our schedule, what if we did a All-Star game watch party? That'd be kind of cool.
For the Senior Bowl, or you're talking about the
either or.
East-West Shrine game?
The Senior Bowl, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, I feel like the Senior Bowl has more badazz to it than the East-West Shrine game.
Probably.
But they're both important. But what if we did that? What if we hopped in and just did kind of watched it in real time, did a little watch party with it? I think that'd be fun, man. So as Drew says, yeah, Senior Bowl. To me, I've always seen the Senior Bowl as the biggest.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
But
that would be cool. That would be a watch party I'd be down for.
Because it's stress-free, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just seeing who pops. So
scout party, you know?
Yeah. B-Time 10 says, I'll tune in for sure. It'd be fun. And listen, we could turn it into a show. It won't be us doing color commentary. We'll all be watching the All-Star game, talking about these prospects. Oh, man, so-and-so just made a huge play. Where's he at on the board, right? And just kind of walk through it that way. So, yeah, it seems like everybody's on board with it. Maybe we'll make that happen. When is that again, Tim?
February 1st.
Okay, so that's coming up here, February 1st.
That is, yeah, wow. Next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend.
What day is it on of the week?
Saturday. Yep.
Cool. Let me see if I can sync my schedule up. That would be fun. Everybody seems like they're on board. So,
definitely.
Everybody, mark your calendar. Tim, do not let me forget. All right, you know I will. Remind me tonight. I'll get with Mandy, check our calendar, and see if I can make that work. And we'll just order some wings, have a little pizza delivered in, sit here and eat on the camera all unprofessionally, and just watch some football together. That'd be fun.
That'd be great.
All right,
I'm writing a note. I'm actually going to remember this time.
Me and Tim are always going, hey, remind me of this. Tim will say, Clayton, remind me of this. I'll say, Tim, remind me of that. And then 3 days later, we go, I got it wrote down and I didn't even remind you. What the hell are we doing?
You know, the funny thing is when you have 8 Post-it notes on your laptop, you know, they kind of get lost in the mix and it all looks the same.
Exactly.
I have to write a note to remind myself to look at notes.
Yeah. Brambo says, Sirius XM, Pat Kerwin, and Jim Miller do a lot of work on the Senior Bowl and bring a lot of players on for pre-draft interviews. That's where I developed my
Pat Kerwin?
Hey, Tim, I think I got something.
We got to promote him. This is free promotion I will gladly do. Right there. Yeah, there it is.
That's the one. Got to have it. Coffee stains and all. I mean, this thing's been through it. Look, you think I'm kidding. Look at this. I had this thing for over a decade. Look at those stains right there.
I love it. I love it.
Actually, Mandy came up here and hit me in the nose, said, you've watched too much football. Put the book down. So that's probably what that was. All right, we're out of here, Tim. You got anything else, man?
No, this was great. Thanks for having me, man. Sorry I was late, Coach. Won't happen again. Don't make me run stairs.
It's all good. I learned a lot today, man. I love getting the community's feedback. So you guys, again, if you're not in the Patreon group, hop over there. If you are in the Patreon group, throw your favorite prospects in there, man. I'm marking them as we go so we don't do them twice on the show, and we'll just comb through. And we want names attached to people that like certain prospects, right? And then when the Packers jump up and they draft one, you can go, that was my dude. That's what we're looking for, right? So
absolutely.
Anyway, we're out of here. We'll see you tonight, 7 p.m. Central for PTA Live. Drew D looks like Clayton was eating wings while reading his book. You're damn right. Clayton's eating wings while he's doing everything. And I'll be mowing the grass eating a wing. I ain't scared. You know what I mean? So, all right, we'll see y'all tonight. Everybody have a great day.
And we go. Bye, guys.